Good morning and welcome to the poetry show here on Enlighten Radio. By the way, if you want to listen to our program live, you can always go to player.enlightenradio.org. Although, occasionally that link has been probably not responding because there's been a lot of maintenance here. We had some machine crashes and are in the rebuilding process, but I think it's up this morning. So anyway, and also when we turn the shows into podcasts, and the podcasts are available on podcast.enlightenradio.org, um, except for Fanny Crawford's podcast, which are on talltales.enlightenradio.org. Anyway, this morning Janet has, sort of. Oh Lord, our dog is upset about a deer. Anyway, um, about the Epiphanies, and of course, the theme of the Magi also sort of fits into that. And I'd like to have her introduce how she got to this thing about journeys this morning.
Well, we had done poems about Advent and waiting, and so what I did is I took the idea of the three magi and then I expanded it into poems just about journeys of different kinds. So we're going to open with 3 or 4 poems about the magi and then segue into some poems that are just about journeys. If that's that was my thinking. So it went from the particular to the general.
Okay, all right. Well,
Do
where do you want to start?
Since you said you liked it, I want to start with the Eliot poem.
Oh, okay. Well, because this is a classic, and let me get to the. Yes, here we go. Journey of the Magi. Now, T.S. Eliot, as I was talking a little bit before the tape, was a very popular poet for graduate students in English to have to study in more than one poetry course, actually. Um, when I was an English graduate student a long time ago in Buffalo, New York. Well, and also at the University of Kansas. So, and he was very interesting because he believed in embedding a whole lot of cultural and literary tradition into poems. There's a long-winded literary argument about why he did that, and it gave people, English professors, a lot to write about over the years. I don't know whether they still do or not, but they used to write just tons about T.S. Eliot's real meanings, etc. Anyway, this is called Journey of the Magi, and it's a little bit different, a little more narrative style than some of his poetry. All right. And it starts out with a character who's quoting or speaking. It starts like this: "A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey. It's such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled, sure sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on the slopes, the terraces, the silken girls bringing sherbet, when the camel men cursing and grumbling and running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty, charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears, saying that this was all folly. And then at dawn, we came down to a temperate valley, wet, below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky. And an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. And then we came to a tavern with wine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door, dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wine skins. But there was no information, and so we continued and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember. And I would do it again, but set down set down this. We were all led that way for birth or death. There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence, and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought that they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation. With an alien people clutching their gods, I should be glad of another death.
It's got some very powerful lines in this poem. It's very beautiful.
Oh
The
boy.
description of the cold and the journey is just amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
struggle with the end of the poem, John. What do you think about that? The birth and death.
Well, uh, I think, yeah, because you could, for example, there's it could be interpreted as the wise men witnessing the death of their own religion,
That's what I thought.
and therefore, I should be glad of another death. That might indicate that there was a extremely literal and devout faith, uh, Catholic faith of Eliot's rather conservative preference, working there. So that could be a dogmatic line. I'm not sure. What do you
I think
think?
this was written shortly after his conversion.
Yeah, I
Paul
mean,
Campbell.
I don't think that it has some power for some reason, although I don't understand. My suspicion that it's that there's a dogma there uh, makes me not really look further. So I tend to agree with you. It's not as strong as yeah, that last line with an alien people clutching their gods. Well, in other words, my people, my
Yeah, but
kingdoms, these
he
kingdoms,
can't go
right?
back. It's like you can't go home again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's a weird kind of it might be a little bit too ethnically charged distinction. It could be that way with Eliot. Could be. You can be suspicious about him a little bit there, maybe.
No, I was just curious what your take on it was. I took it as death, not so much of their own religion, but of their own life. Totally, for some reason, they can't go back to their own life anymore.
Right, right. But I mean, the journey that they make is not there's no epiphany there.
No, it was just satisfying.
Uh, and it's not clear. I mean, when he says like, "Oh, all this is a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again," but set down, this set down, this. That's a weird syntax there. But set down, this set down, this. We led all that way for birth or death. There was a birth, certainly. When he says certainly, and we had no doubt, it doesn't. That doesn't sound like epiphany either, right there.
No,
Um, I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter for it. See, there's the bitterness. So that's the epiphany,
hmm
but it doesn't quite fit. Hmm. Okay.
A different take on what happened.
Yeah. Right. Well,
Uh,
they brought these gifts, so they were expecting something, a big deal, and right, they were costly gifts, as we're going to find in one of the other poems. um, yeah, yeah, but I think the way he does the journey is beautiful.
it is gorgeous.
I mean, he really, it's great. I mean, you bounce right along with him, you know. He takes you all the way, and then you sort of run into a brick wall there at the end. But all right, well, let's try. What's are you going to do the other Magi poem?
Yeah, I'm going to do Christopher Pilling's The Meeting Place,
Yeah.
which is after Rubens' The Adoration of the Magi, 1634, which is a Rubens painting. And it's called The Meeting Place. And the poet is Christopher Pilling. I don't know much about him. He's an English poet. The Meeting Place. It was the arrival of the kings that caught us unaware. We'd looked to the women in the barn. Curiosity, you could call it. Something to do on a cold winter's night. And we wished her well. That was the best we could do. She was in pain. And the next thing we knew, she was lying in the straw, what little there was of it. And there was a babe in her arms. It was, as I said, the kings that caught us unaware. Women have babies every other day. Not that we were there, are there. Let's just call it a common occurrence, though, giving birth. But kings appearing in the stable with is this his place and kneeling, each with the gift held out toward the child. They didn't even notice us. Their robes trailed on the floor, rich lined robes that money couldn't buy. What must this child be to bring kings from distant land with costly incense and gold? And what were we to make of it? Was it angels falling through the air, entwined and falling as if from the rafters, to where the gaze of the kings met the child's, assuming the child could see? What would the mother do with the gifts? What would become of the child? We'll never admit there were angels, or that somewhere between one man's eye and another's is a holy place, a space where a king could be at one with a naked child, at one with an astonished soldier.
Wow. An astonished soldier. That's what I like.
Mhm.
Uh, I like the epiphany of that better. Uh, Makes more sense to me there.
It's kind of told the view of somebody who just sort of happens by the stable and looks in, and then all
Right,
this.
and he's astonished, right? You know, and
Yeah.
so I think that's right. On the other hand, again, it's a poem of what that sort of asks, well, what's the big deal?
hmm Well, it doesn't. No, this is more of a big deal here. Like the angels come, and they're never going to admit that there were angels. I like that line.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's like saying little green man, you know. Okay,
Yeah.
right. You know, I saw Yoda, you know, at the birth site of Jesus, you know. So the baby looked like Yoda. I like that. That's one of the. It's a great circular meme. I like that one. But okay, I see the. Yeah. Okay. So what's next?
I was going to go to the two Brodsky poems. Did you have a chance to read those?
No, I was just getting to that when you signed on. Actually, why don't you read that one, and now I'll read one of the others I did get.
Okay. This is Star of the Nativity by Joseph Brodsky. Joseph Brodsky was a Russian poet who wound up falling out of favor
Oh,
with the
down.
regime. and having to emigrate, Auden helped him come to this country. He wrote essays and learned English. Most of his poetry was written in Russian and then translated, but this one I think he wrote in English, if I understand correctly from the note. It was from Star Nivik, who collected poems in English. But this is Joseph Brodsky, Star of the Nativity. Apparently, even though he wasn't devout, he wrote a poem every Christmas, and this is one of his Christmas poems. The Star of the Nativity by Joseph Brodsky. In the cold season, in a locality accustomed to heat more than to cold, to the horizontality more than to a mountain, a child was born in a cave in order to save the world. It blew as only in desert winter it blows athwart. To him, all things seemed enormous. His mother's breast, the steam out of the ox's nostrils, Caspar, Balthasar, Melancholy, the team of Magi, their presence heaped by the door ajar. He was but a dot, and a dot was the star. Kneeling without blinking, though pallid, stray clouds upon the cloud in the manger from far away. From the depth of the universe, from its opposite end, the star was looking into the cave. And that was the Father's stare.
Wow. I like that close,
Yes, that close is fabulous.
yeah, that's really cute. That's cute. Um, uh, okay, I'm actually trying to find the one you were. What's the name of the one you were just reading?
Star of the Nativity.
Star of the Nativity. Did I have that one
I
in
said it
front of
as the
me?
first one.
I had read it, and that's why it. Star.
Anyhow, it
Oh
opens up
no,
again
I
in the
found.
cold.
Yeah, okay, I found it. Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah, okay. No, I was listening to it while you did it.
But I love the opening in the cold season, in a locality accustomed to heat more than to cold, to horizontally more than to a mountain. So you have this pause. You get this description before you get to a child was born in the cave in order to save the world. And then it goes back to the
Right.
natural. It blew as only in deserts. In winter it blows athwart the wind. So you start out with the landscapes, then the child's born, and then you go back to the weather. I think that's very masterful, that first stanza.
Yeah, I
And then
like
the
the. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
and the idea of everything looking enormous to the baby.
yeah, right, right. But the
Nothing,
idea that the star being the father's eye, that's
yeah,
pretty. That's pretty cool.
that
Yeah.
was amazing. I love that bit.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you contemplate a poem about the nativity, um, and for someone, do you know was he was he active? You say he wasn't that observant, actually,
No, he wasn't, but he still wrote these Christmas poems.
right? So right, because there in them there is this search for a somewhat more secular um, miracle, if I can use that word, um, which is interesting. Okay, I mean, or this, a search for a universal. If you're going to
Hmm.
write about a poem about the nativity or about Jesus or about whatever, because it has so much historical resonance, right? Well, you're going to have to appeal to something universal, unless you're just going to make fun of it or something like that. Um, Does that make sense? And I get that feeling that he's doing that in the poem.
Again, in the next poem by Joseph Brodsky, which is just called Nativity Poem, this one was written in Russian and translated by Seamus Heaney. He starts out with very commonplace things. Again, he's trying to bring this miracle down to very commonplace surroundings. And this is called Nativity Poem. Imagine striking a match that night in the cave. Imagine crockery. Try to make use of its glaze to feel the cold cracks in the floor, the blankness of hunger. Imagine the desert, but the desert is everywhere. Imagine striking a match in that midnight cave. The fire, the farm beasts in outline, the farm tools and stuff. Imagine as you towed your face in enveloping folds, towel your face in enveloping folds, Mary, Joseph, and the infant in swaddling clothes. Imagine the kings, the caravan's stilted procession as they make for the cave, or rather, three beams closing and in on the store, the creaking of loads, the clink of a cowbell. No thronging of heaven yet, no peal of the bell that will ring in the end for the infant that once he has earned it. Imagine the Lord for the first time from darkness and stranded immensely in distance, recognizing himself in the Son of Man, his homelessness plain to him now in a homeless one.
His homelessness plain to him now in a homeless one. Huh. Yeah,
Again, this
that's
is flow. And one you have to stop and think about. Think about God recognizing himself as being homeless because the son of that he has foretold and caused to be born is homeless.
hmm. Right. I don't think that one is quite as successful for some reason as the other one. Maybe it's the translation. Not sure.
It could be.
Um, well, I mean, there's the it's less a little bit less abstract. So
I liked it. I liked the
yeah,
repeat of the imagine, the king, and just as you were it sort of drew you into the poem.
yeah, right.
I thought
Uh,
that was very powerful, and the descriptions were very, very, like the creaking of loads, the clink of a cowbell. Um,
I guess what the close seems very similar, like a very similar appeal. The Lord, for the first time from darkness, stranded immensely in dark,
mhm.
seeing. I think the image of the star that guided the wise men is a
Is more
is
powerful.
is a better trick, a more powerful way to do that. Okay, and by comparison, anyway, it seemed to me. But yes. Uh, So there wasn't as much surprise in the end of this poem, or whatever you want to call it, the bump, the leap. um, what are the last two couplets of the sonnet supposed to be? What's the last couplet? It has a name for it, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I can't remember it right off the top of
Mm.
my head.
All right, all right. Well, but okay. But that's again that's an interesting twist on it. Right.
Well, that concludes the poems about the Magi. Now we're going to general poems about journeys. And I was going to
All
start with
right.
a famous poem by Mary Oliver, just called The Journey.
Oh, that's a beautiful poem. It's a beautiful
Going to
poem.
read it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay, Mary Oliver, The Journey. One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt like the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each void cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, and though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds. And there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.
Now, this is the very first poem I ever read by Mary Oliver, before I knew she was Mary Oliver, when I was in graduate school in pharmacology, and I would haunt bookstores, and I was in the poetry section, and I pulled down her book, Dream Work, and I opened it, and I read this poem. And I sat down on the floor of the bookstore, and I read that poem about 10, 15 times in a row. It really spoke to my condition. And then, even though I didn't have the money, I bought the book and skipped lunch for a while to pay for it because it just moved me so much. I was on the cusp of my first divorce, and the idea of voices shouting at you with their bad advice and getting beyond that was, and going on with the journey and saving the
Right.
only life I could save was just really spoke to my condition at the time. And this
Well,
poem
it's
really meant
yeah.
a lot to me.
No, it's a very powerful poem, and it's a famous poem actually. I mean, I've seen this. I see people post it on social media, in occasions of either joy or grief, or successful or unsuccessful adventures, and so um, it speaks for itself. It's hard to think how anyone over the age of 30 would not hear that voice, So anyway, yeah, very powerful poem. Are you going to go on to the Nobel Prize winner after this? Or you
No,
had
I'm going
another?
to do the Nikki Giovanni. Nikki Giovanni
Oh, right, right.
is an
Nikki
African
Giovanni.
American poet, one of our more famous African American poets. She just died in December, so I'm doing this poem partially in tribute to her. She just died December 4th,
Right.
down in Blacksburg, Virginia. She was at Virginia Tech. Um, and this poem is called A Journey. And I wish that you could see the layout because the layout is part of the poem. But I'll just try and read it as best I can. She has it broken up into phrases with ellipses between them and
Right.
sort of in stanzas. So this is A Journey by Nikki Giovanni. It's a journey that I propose. I am not the guide, not technical assistant. I will be your fellow passenger. Though the rail has been hidden, winter clouds cover, autumn's exuberant quilt, we must provide our own guideposts. I have heard from previous visitors the road washes out sometimes, and passengers are compelled to continue groping or turn back. I am not afraid. I am not afraid of rough spots or lonely times. I don't fear the success of this endeavor. I am raw, in a space not to be discovered, but invented. I promise you nothing. I accept your promise. Of the same, we are simply riding a wave that may carry or crash. It's a journey, and I want to go.
Wow.
I love that moment, a wave that may carry or crash. It's a journey, and I want to go. So this is the tug of being pulled out on something when you're not really sure about the uncertainty. And I think that that is, since so many of us are moving into things that are uncertain, I thought it was really a good poem for this moment.
Well, a lot of times people are being torn away.
Hmm.
Um, like or that or they're going away because they want to leave where they are.
Hmm.
Um, and so you're there's a what they call it, there's a statistical probability distribution about what's going to happen after you leave, right?
Yeah.
And there's very little absolute certainty. And I mean, I just was witnessing that, of course, in my granddaughter who is here and has all kinds of uh, things that she wants to do with her life, some of which involve getting away from where she's at, others about where she thinks she might be going. And so this poem's it's like I like the you're not too old to take another trip part of this poem. I like that.
Hmm.
Speaking as speaking as someone who, well, do I want to go?
I
No,
like that repetition of I am not afraid. I am not afraid. It kind of implies that the person is afraid, but they're trying to deny it. Uh,
exactly. Right,
the
right.
underlying it. A rough
Or I'm
spot.
going to keep going despite the fact that I am afraid.
Yeah.
So right. You know. But she's been a very unusual and innovative poet, right, her whole career. Uh,
Yeah.
so she's I don't remember. I mean, I've seen ellipses used, of course, in poems, but I don't remember seeing anything quite like this,
Yeah.
where basically what would be every line of the poetry is separated by an ellipsis of the poem, and every verse is separated by an extra like line. Okay, so so it has a very different visual, but it does, when you're reading it, cause you to pause, doesn't it? Doesn't it? And doesn't it sort of
Yeah.
when you
I
see
tried
the
to put the
ellipsis,
pauses in.
take a breath,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, interesting. Right. A Journey by Nikki Giovanni. Okay, do we have another one to do?
The last one is by Rabindranath Tagore. It might be Tagore. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He is an Indian poet, Nobel Prize winner, and the poem is simply called Farewell. He's written a number of farewell
Oh,
poems,
yeah,
but this is
I got it.
the book.
You want me to read
And
this one?
yeah, I
Oh,
have
okay.
I've got my leave. Bid the farewell, my friend, my brothers. I sorry, I have to get this larger. I can't read it. I
You want me
have
to read?
got
Oh,
yes, if you would, John.
okay. I got it up here. Okay. So I have got my leave. Bid me farewell, my brothers. I bow to you all and take my departure. Here, I give back the keys of my door, and I give up all claims to my house. I only ask for last kind words from you. We were neighbors for long, but I received more than I could give. Now the day has dawned, and the lamp that lit my dark corner is out. A summons has come, and I am ready for my journey.
I love that poem. I
That's
love
a
the moment.
very nice, yes.
Very simple, but it's very clear, very kind poem, very gentle. I love the moment here. I get back the keys to my door. I give up my claims on my house. That idea of renunciation and going forward. I thought that those were the two themes in this poem of renunciation and going forward.
Um, do you remember the parable of from Kafka called My Destination?
No, I'm not sure I do.
Well, can I read it? Because it's very short and it fits our little
Sure.
theme here. Okay. It goes like this. I gave orders for my horse to be brought around from the stables. The servant did not understand me. I myself went to the stable, saddled my horse, and mounted. In the distance, I heard a bugle call. I asked him what this meant. He knew nothing and had heard nothing. At the gate, he stopped me, asking, "Where are you riding to, master?" "I don't know," I said. "Only away from here, away from here, always away from here. Only by doing so can I reach my destination." "And so you know your destination?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "Didn't I say so? Away from here. That is my destination." "But," he said, "you have no provisions with you." "I need none," I said. "The journey is so long. I must die of hunger if I do not get anything on the way. No provisions can save me, for it is fortunately a truly immense journey." That's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that.
That's from the Parables and Paradoxes, I think, book of Kafka. Um, I always liked that one because I always looked at it as a parable of being born.
Yeah, we read a lot of Kafka in German when I was in high school because his German wasn't very complex and it was suitable for
Right.
introductory students.
So anyway, well, I thought it fit a little bit into your journey theme there a little bit.
Yes, it did.
All right. Well, I like these. I
The
like these
ending
poems a
for
lot.
it. But yes, I thought it was interesting to try and take the theme of the Magi and then expand it into the idea of take people taking journeys,
Right.
um,
Right.
risking on the unknown.
Right. Right. Okay, well, before the dog starts barking at the deer in our front yard out here, I think we should close the program. All right, I think those are beautiful poems, Janet. And by the way, so if you want to check it out in a day or text me a day to get them up here, especially since I'm rebuilding my machines here, go to podcast.enlightenradio.org, or you can go to Enlighten Radio from Shepherdstown, West Virginia on Facebook, even though it's mostly from Bolivar these days. And you can also, I always post the podcast there as well. Anyway, thank you very much. Take care of each other. It's late, but everything comes next.